The Council had summoned Earth's representative with little warning, and the intent was clear. Rumors of human defiance had already rippled through the galaxy, whispers of a burgeoning civilization refusing to yield to Confederation control. Too resourceful, too determined. The Council members exchanged knowing glances as one of the leading diplomats, Chancellor Vorshah the Raxan, a creature of intimidating height with leathery green skin and a face covered in jagged bone spines, stood to speak. Earth, she began, has prospered, yet your people enjoy these fruits without proper respect for our ways. Her gaze swept the Council's tiers, collecting silent nods of approval from her peers. Our laws maintain peace across galaxies, and our taxes and tributes support stability for all. Your planet has been invited to join this harmony, on our terms. Across the chamber, the lone human stood unmoved. Ambassador Ethan Riley, a figure chosen precisely for his resilience and composure, remained steadfast, his posture showing neither arrogance nor deference. He knew they had summoned him expecting humility or, better yet, an eager acceptance of their demands. Instead, they faced a man who bore the collective resolve of Earth's leaders, each word measured and hardened by a new generation of defiant humanity. Chancellor Vorshah continued, her voice rising. Thus, the Confederation has decreed that Earth must contribute, like all who wish to live freely under our protection. You shall provide resources in tribute, specifically the rare element Silurium, which, as we understand, your colonies have recently unearthed in abundance. A tribute of 1/4 of your annual yield will suffice to secure your place here. A murmur passed through the tiers, an alien language chorus of approval and hunger. Silurium was rare and potent, a fuel source beyond anything that powered human ships and cities. Earth's accidental discovery of it in the asteroid belt had ignited a firestorm of interest. Now, it was clear, the Confederation would take their claim. Ambassador Riley's gaze drifted upward, lingering on the countless species surrounding him, their eyes alight with expectation and superiority. To them, he was just another ambassador from a backwater world, one who would obediently capitulate to survive. They knew nothing of humanity's hardships, their history of defiance in the face of conquerors, nor of the resolute will that pulse within every human. Riley's silence seemed to unsettle the Council's smug calm, but Vorshah dismissed it with a flick of her Talon hand. If you refuse, Earth will face the consequences, she continued, her voice sharp. Your burgeoning worlds will be cut off, and the resources you take for granted, water, fuel, alloys, will be sanctioned. We will not hesitate to protect the order we have built. The threat hung heavy in the air, a declaration of their iron grip over the galaxy's trade and alliances. Most species would bow, knowing well the Confederation's reach was as vast as it was ruthless. Riley, however, had prepared for this moment. Taking a deliberate step forward, he met Vorshah's eyes, his tone quiet but unwavering. With all due respect, he began, words as measured as his gaze was fierce. Earth is prepared to contribute, but we will not do so under duress. Your demands for tribute, your threats, they're relics of a system built on oppression. A murmur of shock reverberated through the chamber. No one spoke back to the Council this way. Vorshah's mouth twisted, her voice dripping with scorn. We are offering you protection and status. Without our guidance, your species would be but a speck lost among the stars. This is your final opportunity, Ambassador. Accept or suffer the full force of our mandate. Riley drew in a slow breath. He'd been chosen because he understood the weight of his response, not just for himself but for all of humanity. His answer would mark the beginning of Earth's place in the galaxy, for better or worse. After a beat, his response was simple, cutting through the charged silence. Fuck you. A collective gasp filled the chamber. Eyes widened. A few Council members recoiled in shock. There, in that single sentence, he had dismissed centuries of their order, every mandate, every carefully constructed hierarchy. Earth would not be intimidated. Chancellor Vorshah's face contorted in fury, her bony spines bristling as she struggled for words. Around her, Other council members leaned forward, their shock hardening into anger, some even snarling in indignation. Riley held his ground, giving the council a moment to absorb his defiance. The silence grew thicker, the council members' faces twisting from shock to simmering wrath. And yet, he felt no fear, only a searing sense of pride. He had just set humanity's course, unyielding and unafraid. The moment lingered, charged with an intensity that left no doubt. War was coming. The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with barely controlled outrage in the days that followed Earth's insolent rejection. Chancellor Vorshaw, seating beneath her composed exterior, marshaled her supporters and soon rallied a coalition of the Confederation's most ruthless forces. Word spread quickly, across hundreds of systems, across light years. Earth had defied the Great Confederation, and now the Council would crush them, setting an example that would ripple across the galaxy. Across the void on Earth, the news broke with a solemn, inevitable weight. Humanity was now fully aware of the challenge before them, and their governments responded swiftly. At the center of Earth's military operations stood General Andy Hale, a veteran commander known for his unyielding focus and strategic brilliance. Hale had been briefed within hours of Riley's fateful words to the Council, and he understood both the risks and the unprecedented opportunity this war presented. Gathered in the war room beneath the massive Earth Defense Command headquarters, Hale addressed his team, his voice steady and resonant. "The Council believes they can intimidate us into submission," he began, eyes scanning the assembly of officers and strategists. "They underestimate us because they've forgotten what it means to fight for freedom, for survival. But that's our advantage. We've never forgotten." His team nodded in tense agreement. They were an elite group, each prepared to face the seemingly insurmountable odds of challenging the galaxy's most powerful forces. They had no illusions about the Council's reach. The Confederation's fleet spanned the cosmos, and their technology far outstripped anything humanity had yet developed. But Earth had always been a planet of innovators, a society that advanced rapidly under pressure. Within days, humanity's first counterstrikes began, catching the Confederation forces off guard. Using guerrilla tactics honed over centuries of Earth's conflicts, human forces struck, not in broad assaults but in precise, calculated skirmishes. Small, agile ships darted through the darkness, evading larger Confederation fleets to target critical supply lines and logistical hubs. The Confederation's fleets, built for overwhelming force rather than agility, struggled to keep pace. Yet, the initial human victories only fueled the Council's anger. Chancellor Vorshaw responded with a brutal escalation, deploying warships the size of cities, bristling with weaponry powerful enough to decimate entire continents. These were ships designed for conquest, painted in the grim hues of their homeworlds, each one a monument to the Council's unchallenged dominance. Vorshaw watched the fleet's deployment from her command center, her gaze icy and detached as holograms of Earth's territories flickered before her. "They want to fight," she murmured to her advisors, each of whom nodded in dutiful agreement. "Then we will give them a war that will leave no doubt as to who controls this galaxy." The first full-scale battle erupted near the asteroid colonies of Alpha Centauri, where human forces had established a hidden base among the dense fields of debris. The Confederation's fleets arrived in full force, their ships looming like dark titans against the stars. General Hale, leading from Earth's command center, watched the initial strikes in real time, analyzing the enemy's predictable movements. Confederation forces, he realized, relied too heavily on brute strength and lacked the flexibility Earth's smaller ships could exploit. Hale issued orders to his commanders on the front. "Lure them deeper into the field," he instructed, his voice crisp with authority. "Use the terrain. Make them come to us." Human ships scattered, weaving between asteroids and debris, drawing the Confederation's colossal vessels into narrow choke points where their size became a hindrance rather than an advantage. And then Earth's fleet struck back with precision. Stealth bombers, disguised among the asteroid shadows, unleashed a barrage of missiles, finding weak points in the Confederation's hulls. Explosions burst through the silence of space, debris scattering as the massive ships floundered, their armor torn and their systems overwhelmed. Humanity's resilience was on full display, and their strikes left an indelible mark on the once unstoppable fleet. The losses routed the Council's forces, and for the first time in ages, fear crept into the minds of the alien commanders. Reports flowed back to the Council chamber, detailing the damage and disruption Earth's forces had inflicted. Chancellor Vorshaw's fury simmered, but a new emotion shadowed her confidence: apprehension. She knew Earth's defiance was no longer an isolated act of rebellion. It was a growing movement, one that would not be easily quashed. Back on Earth, the victories stoked a surge of morale. General Hale, however, remained focused, aware that these skirmishes were only the beginning. He addressed his officers in the dimly lit war room, the holograms of battle still illuminating the walls. "We've won battles," he acknowledged, his tone steady, "but the Council will bring its full strength next time. Our victories give us momentum, but it's our resolve that will win this war." As the Council's forces regrouped, they planned their next wave of attacks, swearing to crush humanity in a campaign that would break Earth's spirit once and for all. But Hale had other plans. He began organizing a network of human resistance cells across the galaxy, recruiting allies among those disillusioned with the Council's iron rule. He knew Earth couldn't win by force alone. They needed alliances, strategy, and most of all, the element of surprise. As the days pressed on, both sides readied themselves for the next confrontation. Each victory, each loss, etched itself into the emerging legend of humanity's unyielding stand. And as the Confederation marshaled its forces for an unprecedented assault, one truth lingered among both sides: Earth would not surrender. The war had begun in earnest, and humanity would prove they were a force unlike any the galaxy had ever faced. The galaxy was watching now, and every victory carried weight far beyond the battlefield. News of Earth's defiance spread rapidly, fueling whispers of admiration and fear among dozens of oppressed worlds. In their shimmering capital cities and humble mining colonies, alien citizens began to question the Confederation's might. If humans, a fledgling race, could hold their ground against a vast armada, what else was possible? At the center of Earth's resistance stood General Andy Hale, whose steady resolve had become a symbol of humanity's unbreakable spirit. Every decision he made, every order he gave, was calculated to exploit the Council's overconfidence. He had studied their tactics, learned their weaknesses, and now, in the shadow of his leadership, humanity's forces evolved into something the galaxy hadn't anticipated: a true force of resistance. Hale's strategy emphasized asymmetrical warfare, using Earth's nimble fleet to evade the Council's massive vessels. Rather than engaging in direct confrontation, human ships deployed ambush tactics, striking from asteroid fields, hiding among the nebulae, and laying traps along Confederation supply routes. Earth scientists had worked relentlessly to repurpose salvaged alien technology, upgrading human ships to wield faster weaponry, enhanced cloaking devices, and more powerful shields. The adaptability that had once been Earth's strength in adversity now turned every encounter into a brutal reminder that the Council's supremacy was no longer unchallenged. In one such battle, near the barren expanse of the Girian cluster, Hale commanded an operation from a stealth frigate, cloaked in the swirling gas clouds that filled the region. His crew, hardened by months of combat, awaited his orders in silence as Confederation warships glided past, their massive hulls slicing through the murky darkness. The tension was palpable, and every officer knew the stakes. This was one of the Confederation's key outposts, a primary link in their supply chain. With a nod, Hale gave the command: "Engage." Human ships burst from their cover, weaving between the larger vessels with almost surgical precision. In seconds, energy beams and missile blasts illuminated the darkness, and the first Confederation cruiser erupted in flames, its engines gutted by precise strikes. The rest of the Council fleet scrambled to react, but the humans' smaller, faster ships darted between them, exploiting every gap in their formation. Each hit counted. Each strike crippled the supply network further, sending a clear message to the Council: Earth would not yield. The alien captains struggled to counter the humans' maneuvers. They were trained for conquest, used to overwhelming force, not the disciplined chaos of guerrilla warfare. Aboard her flagship, Chancellor Vorshaw's lieutenant, Commander Rauscher, roared in frustration as his commands were met with failure after failure. "These humans fight like vermin," he spat, gripping the edge of the tactical console, claws clenching in anger. "They flee before we can pin them down." But they didn't simply flee. Human forces struck and vanished, leaving the Confederation's fleets isolated and divided. Days passed, then weeks, and Earth's reputation as a fierce, indomitable opponent grew with each engagement. The Confederation's analysts pored over human battle patterns, desperate to decode their seemingly erratic tactics, but Hale had been careful, unpredictable, turning even his defeats into stepping stones toward future victories. Behind the lines, Hale's soldiers looked to him not only as a commander, but as a symbol of what humanity was fighting to preserve. His officers, men like Captain Daniel Reeves and Lieutenant Michael Cross, shared his commitment to Earth's survival. In moments between skirmishes, Hale would remind his men what they were fighting for, his words never elaborate but always clear. "This war isn't just about our lives," he told them one evening as they prepared for an assault. "It's about proving that no species, no council, has the right to demand our obedience. We're fighting for our freedom, for our future, and for everyone out there watching, hoping for the same." Each time he spoke, his words hardened their resolve, transforming raw fear into a fierce determination that carried them into battle after battle. Earth's resistance was no longer just a series of tactics. It had become a movement, a beacon to those who dreamed of liberation from the Council's control. But the Council was growing desperate, and desperation bred brutality. In retaliation for Earth's continued resistance, Chancellor Vorshaw authorized a campaign of devastating orbital strikes on human-held colonies, targeting civilian infrastructure to break Earth's spirit. Cities on the colonies of Ceres and Proxima burned, and thousands perished in the cold vacuum of space, victims of the Council's wrath. But instead of shattering humanity's morale, the attacks steeled their resolve. Hale ordered rapid countermeasures, evacuating vulnerable populations and fortifying key positions. Earth would defend its people to the last. In the end, the Confederation's ruthlessness served only to galvanize humanity. As reports of the atrocities reached the front lines, Hale's men fought with even greater ferocity, their tactics sharper, their ambushes deadlier. For every city the Council tried to erase, Earth promised to deliver retribution 100-fold. Each loss, each life taken, became a rallying cry, a reminder of why they could not afford to lose. And amid the raging battles, a new possibility began to take shape. Hale had seen the fractures within the Council's forces, the whispers of dissent from alien soldiers tired of fighting for an empire that had only brought them oppression. Reports trickled in of defectors, of species unwilling to fight against a cause they had come to sympathize with. Hale knew the Council's iron grip was weakening. It was only a matter of time before the cracks widened, before others rose up alongside humanity. His forces had become the first true rebellion against the Confederation's tyranny, a spark that might ignite the entire galaxy. The final battle loomed like a storm on the horizon, an inevitable collision between Earth's resilience and the Confederation's overwhelming might. General Andy Hale stood in the command center of the newly fortified Terran Defense Station, orbiting Earth like a silent sentinel. All across the war room, officers coordinated last-minute preparations, voices taut with purpose. Earth's allies, former Confederation races who had quietly defected, had gathered alongside human forces, ready to make their stand against the Council's looming fleet. This was humanity's last stronghold, and Hale knew it. Every colony, every distant outpost had either fallen or been evacuated. Only Earth remained unyielding, a beacon of defiance that burned bright even in the shadow of annihilation. Aboard the lead Confederation dreadnought, Chancellor Vorshaw prepared her forces for an all-encompassing assault. Months of human defiance had stained her ironclad confidence with bitterness, and she was determined to erase Earth from existence. The vast fleet arrayed behind her was a testament to her wrath. Countless warships, each equipped with enough firepower to lay waste to cities in a single strike. She saw this battle as not just a victory, but a message to the galaxy. No one defied the Confederation and survived. Across the void, General Hale issued his final orders. Earth's ships, a combination of battle-scarred frigates and newly retrofitted alien cruisers, formed a tight defensive formation around the station. Hale's strategic mind had crafted a desperate but brilliant plan, one that would force the Council's forces into a bottleneck near Earth's orbit, exploiting the narrow passage between the planet's magnetic fields and its lunar orbit. In the minutes before the battle commenced, Hale addressed his troops one last time. His voice, transmitted across every ship, was steady and resolute. "We're here because we refuse to bow," he said, looking into the faces of his officers and the holograms of his allies. "They've sent their best, their mightiest, and still we stand. This battle isn't just about Earth. It's about every world that dreams of freedom." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "Remember what you fight for, and remember that today we are not alone. Stand firm, stand united for Earth, and for every being who watches, hoping to live free." With that, the command was given, and Earth's fleet surged forward, engines flaring as they engaged the first wave of the Council's ships. Human vessels met the enemy with calculated ferocity, weaving through the Council's formation, launching waves of missiles and laser fire. The initial skirmishes rippled across the battlefield, small explosions marking the space between the fleets. As Hale had predicted, the Council's ships struggled to maneuver within the tighter bounds of Earth orbit. Their size and numbers, once their greatest strength, now worked against them. Human pilots, trained in nimble evasive tactics, exploited every weakness, darting between the lumbering dreadnoughts to strike vulnerable systems and weapon arrays. In the heart of the fray, Captain Daniel Reeves led a squadron of fighters on daring runs against the Council's flagship. His wing dodged plasma fire with precision, diving close enough to graze the dreadnought's shields before veering off, each pass weakening its defenses. On his final approach, he gave a grim smile, thinking of everything that had led to this moment, the countless battles, the comrades lost. This was it, the culmination of all their efforts. Meanwhile, Hale watched the tactical display, his mind a whirlwind of calculations. He could see the tide shifting. The Council's lines were faltering, strained under the weight of Earth's relentless assault. But Vorsha, sensing the shift, unleashed her final weapon. A wave of unmanned drones, each loaded with enough explosives to tear through Earth's defenses. The drones swarmed forward, faster and harder to track than any ship. They sliced through Earth's defenses, triggering explosions as human frigates crumbled under the onslaught. Hale gritted his teeth, his gaze fixed on the tactical screen. He knew this was their final test. The Confederation's last, desperate attempt to turn the battle. Activating a secure line, he called to his officers, "Execute Maneuver Zeta 3. Channel them into the asteroid field. We'll use the drone's speed against them." In unison, Earth's ships shifted, luring the drones toward the asteroid belt where Hale had positioned hidden mines. As the drones entered the field, the mines detonated in rapid succession, a symphony of controlled chaos that ripped through the Council's forces. The screen filled with flashes of light, and in seconds, the swarm was obliterated, leaving only the main Council fleet vulnerable. With a fierce glint in his eye, Hale seized the opportunity. "All units, full assault. Take down their flagship." The human fleet converged on the dreadnought, hammering it with everything they had. Shields collapsed, and hull breaches split open along its surface as human forces unleashed a final barrage. On board, Chancellor Vorsha staggered, her composure slipping as her empires might crumble before her. She struggled to issue orders, her voice breaking as her control unraveled. But it was too late. The dreadnought's engines flared one last time before they flickered and died, the hulking mass drifting helplessly. An eerie silence filled the space around it as the remaining council ships turned to retreat. Their will shattered. Cheers erupted across the human fleet, voices exulting over secure channels as the realization set in. They had won. Hale allowed himself a rare smile, his gaze lingering on Earth through the viewport, bathed in the glow of victory. Humanity had not just survived. They had triumphed, standing unbroken against the galaxy's greatest power. As the Council's ships disappeared into the stars, a sense of awe settled over the battlefield. This victory was more than a turning point. It was a promise. Earth had defied the Confederation, and now, across the galaxy, others would rise. Humanity had become a symbol of resistance, a testament to the power of a people united in defiance. Hale looked out into the vastness of space, knowing they had sparked something far greater than themselves. Today, they had won not just for Earth, but for all who sought freedom. And though the galaxy remained perilous, humanity would face it with unyielding courage, knowing they had forged their destiny among the stars.